I remember noticing the candles first. They were the wrong shade of blue, too bright, almost childish. And they leaned slightly because the cake had been left out too long. The frosting smelled aggressively sweet. Vanilla pretending to be something richer. I had turned 40 sometime between setting the table and opening the wine. He didn't sit down. That was the first thing I registered as off. He stood at the end of the table, jacket still on, keys in his hand like punctuation. He didn't look nervous. He looked practiced. As if he'd rehearsed this while driving, maybe even in the mirror at work. I don't think this is working anymore, he said, carefully. I need something different. Someone younger. He said it the way people say they need more fiber. Or a different phone plan. I nodded, not because I understood. Not because I agreed. But because my body chose stillness over collapse. The nod felt automatic. Like muscle memory from years of smoothing moments over before they got uncomfortable. He kept talking, about growth, honesty, not wanting to waste my time. But it all blurred into background noise. The candles burned unevenly. One of them dripped wax onto the cake, carving a small blue scar. When he finally left, he took his jacket and his certainty. He didn't take the cake. The months after were quiet in an administrative way. Divorce is less about heartbreak than it is about forms, passwords, and learning which utilities were in your name. I learned how to sleep diagonally in the bed. I learned which friends would check in once and never again, and which would quietly keep showing up with groceries like nothing had happened. I did not cry in public. I cried in the shower, briefly, efficiently, as if tears were another task to complete before work. At work, I became useful. Not inspirational. Not brave, just useful. I stayed late. I fixed problems no one wanted to touch. I learned how to speak in meetings without apologizing first. My voice changed, not louder, but steadier. People started listening in a way they hadn't before. That was when David noticed me. He had always been there. Technically. My boss's boss. A presence that moved through the building like weather, predictable, rarely personal. Our interactions were clean. Professional, contained. After the divorce, he started asking how projects were going and actually waiting for the answer. Nothing happened for a long time. And that mattered. When something finally did shift, it wasn't romance. It was respect that had been building quietly. Stacking up like weight you don't feel until you do. I resisted it harder than I expected to. The optics alone felt dangerous. My age, his position. The timing. When we finally crossed the line into something unmistakable, it was deliberate and unromantic in the best way. Conversations about boundaries came before kisses. HR came before holidays together. Love arrived later, like an afterthought that refused to leave. I heard about my ex-husband the way you hear about old classmates indirectly, without context. He'd left his job. Something about restructuring. He'd dated someone younger, much younger, but it hadn't lasted. He was staying with his mother, for a bit. That bit stretched. I felt nothing sharp about it. No pleasure. No revenge, fueled satisfaction. Just a dull acknowledgement that the future he described so confidently hadn't unfolded the way he'd expected. When David proposed, there was no audience. We were in the kitchen. He asked plainly. I answered honestly. No tears, no theatric. Just a sense of alignment settling into place. I told myself this wasn't about comparison. And I meant it. He showed up on a Tuesday, no call, no text. Just his knock, familiar, almost intimate in its timing. I opened the door before I could overthink it. He looked older than I remembered. Not dramatically. Just unedited. The confidence he used to wear so easily sat less comfortably now, like a suit tailored for someone else. David came into the hallway without being summoned. Not protective. Present. My ex-husband smiled, thin and careful. His eyes flicked between us. I just wanted to talk, he said. Clear the air. We stood there. The silence stretched long enough to become a decision. Finally, he spoke again. I think we made a mistake, he said. I think you settled because it was easy. Because he was hurt. He looked at me when he said it. Like he expected recognition. Gratitude even. I'm willing to forgive that. He added, the audacity of it landed softly. Like something fragile dropped from a height. David didn't raise his voice. He didn't posture. He didn't insult him. He stepped forward just enough to be undeniable. "This conversation is over," he said calmly. "You're not welcome here. If you return, we'll handle it formally." There was no threat in his tone, just procedure. The kind that doesn't need emotion to be effective. My ex-husband opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked at me one last time, searching for something, permission, maybe. I didn't nod this time. He left. Later that night, after the house had settled into its quiet, I sat alone and thought about the woman I had been at 40. About how still she'd gone. About how she'd mistaken silence for weakness. I understand her better now. She wasn't powerless. She was conserving. I am not healed in some cinematic way. There are moments, small, unannounced, when the past still presses in. When I wonder who I might been if I'd spoken sooner. But dignity returned without fanfare. Control without cruelty. Love without erasure, and that feels like enough.